Oh, hey you. It's Kat and Steve with the Positively Midwest podcast.
Well, hello there. Now, before this next episode, let's talk about sharing our mission.
To help, we have hooked up with Anchor.fm to help us keep launching Positively Midwest to as many ears as possible. The more we expand our reach, the more lives we can help inspire.
If you haven't heard of Anchor, it is the easiest way to make a podcast. Bonus, it's free. There are creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer.
Well, Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Apple Podcast, Spotify, Google, and many more.
You can make money with no minimum listenership, which helps our cause.
It's everything you need to make a podcast in just one place.
So go now, download free Anchor app or go to anchorapp.fm to get started.
Now, sit back and enjoy the next episode of the Positively Midwest podcast. Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Positively Midwest. On episode 73 we're on, and tonight... Oh, I'm Steve Jurens. I always forget this, and across from me, as always, is my lovely wife, Catherine.
Hello.
So,
everyone just knows who we are by now.
Yes. That's what I was saying. You know, if they listen to us, they know. But then somebody might share just one of our stories.
Right.
You know, like this one that we're going to be doing today, and then you never know. So we have to introduce ourselves. So it's just like signing a card, and you got me on board with that too.
Yeah, he used to never want to sign greeting cards. Like, he'd give me a card that he bought, but he didn't want to sign his name. And I'm like, that just seems so like blasé and generic. Like, you don't even, I don't know. It's not personable. You got to sign a card.
Yeah. Well, and I do. So, and I practice that with gratitude. We send out thank you cards and, do that at work too and whatnot, and just for no reason sometimes. So anyways, we're going to talk about that a little bit later on in this episode that we are about to record. And this is going to be, I think, a very informative and inspirational episode. It will take you into the mind of an individual that has struggled with contemplating suicide, depression, and, after a long consideration, reached out to us to tell the story, and I want to do right by it too. So we've got a lot of information that we'll get out to for anyone that's contemplated that, or it inspires you to look for more information, because you could also find more information to help someone you speculate might be in that. So we are connected in a modern way, if you will, a blended family. So his mom and my step grandma are sisters. So we have Nathan Woodard with us tonight. Nathan, how are you?
Doing good. How are you guys?
Very good. You're coming in loud and clear, so that's perfect. So officially on record, if you will, I want to thank you, honestly, from the bottom of our hearts for doing this. It does take a lot of strength to talk about any, pain or suffering, yet alone something this intense. And you and I related when we met earlier about it too, with like-minded, and then hopefully we'll give people some good information, or we will, but hopefully we can inspire someone. So thank you again for doing this.
Yes, happy to be here, and hopefully someone gets good out of it. So
awesome. So why don't you just give us the cliche, tell us where, you grew up in a small town high school, and kind of maybe a couple of things about your life, if you have any siblings, just kind of introduce yourself a little.
Yeah, so I'm Nathan Woodard, originally born and raised in Castlewood. Grew up there all my life. Graduated high school there. I got two siblings. I got an older sister and older brother. Currently married to a high school sweetheart. Been together since we were 15. And got a little 7-year-old daughter. And now I reside here in Watertown and living life to the fullest.
So that's got to be one thing I don't think many people understand, especially in today's world. But we are also high school sweethearts. Around that 16 years old, we started dating, and now we're 37-ish. So, but there's its own set of challenges. But when we talk about positivity, there is a lot of stuff to be positive about too, with a long relationship where you kind of grew up together and went through a lot of trials and tribulations. So I know when you get into your story, you'll talk a little bit about trust and how, you looked at her differently after this too. But yeah, tell us a bit about your marriage and lead into the story that you're willing to share with us.
Yeah. So, like I said, we've been together since high school. After high school, we kind of went all over. I went to school in Wyoming. She went to school in Colorado, and seeing each other, every weekend. And after kind of bouncing around, decided I wanted to join the military. And that was probably the hardest one for us. I went to basic and OSIT, which is one station unit training. And as soon as I got out, about a month later, I got sent overseas. So we didn't really get to live together, per se. We'd only been married at that time for, probably 2 months prior to basic. So I'd say not even a year. Got shipped over, came back, then ended up getting relocated to a new duty station where she started to move down. And then 8 months later, I got deployed again for my second deployment. And then after that, came back, got relocated again, where I became an instructor for basic training, and finally got to live together. So after the first, I'd say 4 years of my military career, I got to live with her for maybe 9-10 months out of that. And then once I was an instructor for basic, we got to live together, but that was long days, long nights, and it still almost didn't get to see her, per se. However, she's been amazing through it. Without her and, between both deployments, the support and everything she's given, she's been quite the trooper and dealing with all that. So, which leads me into kind of, you'll hear more into the story, but for me, she's been my rock. Without her, going through, mental issues like depression, thoughts of suicide, things like that. If it wasn't for her, I don't know where I would be today, if I would be here, that type of thing. So to start off, I guess, once I got out of the military, I was looking forward to it at first, even though I thought I was going to be a career guy, going to do the 20-year. That didn't work out. So then I changed my mental aspect. I was kind of excited. Well, we ended up moving back, and quickly did I realize, how much it wasn't all, greener on the other side. Started thinking about how, my whole career was going to be the military. I was going to do the 20 years, and now here I am in life, and I don't have an education. I've got my tech school to fall back on, but my whole life's plan was shot after 6.5 years of military, later 20s, mid 20s. Now I'm pretty much trying to start life over. And that's when things really kind of took the downward spiral for me. I had some off and on kind of depression issues before that. Nothing serious, nothing that I would ever, be concerned with, or, just basic moods that, everyone gets, but maybe a little bit more dreary. But once we moved back here, I went through a couple trials of, wanted to start my own kind of side stuff, projects, jobs, things like that. Was given some information and opportunity to do stuff for a career that ultimately didn't work out. It cost me loads of money. Ended up getting to the point where I was getting really depressed. I really wanted to make this career work, really wanted to make this, business happen. So instead of, talking over with my wife about it, I started, I took out a loan, and then I went through and kind of hid that from her. And from there, it just turned into a big spiraling mess. I got more depressed because it wasn't working out as I was hoping. Now I'm in debt, and I don't have the job, going as well as I thought it would. I started working another job to help pay for stuff. Obviously I had to make a living, I had to pay our bills at home, plus try to keep the shop going. And that was pretty much the pitfall for me. That's when mentally I had a collapse, and I don't know why I initially did that. I don't know why I held the secrets from her and all the struggles. I just played it off as, oh, yep, things are going good. It's starting to pick up, or X, Y, Z. And it was totally not the case. I had been with her, at this time, probably 10 years, never, ever had issues like that. Never once felt like I had to hide anything. But for some reason, that time I felt like I, had to do that. Looking back on that, how I think it started is, I didn't want her to see me as a failure. I didn't know, I'd started second guessing, like, okay, what is she going to think? I've been successful and we've been doing well, throughout our life together. And all of a sudden, this is, in my eyes, considered an unsuccessful, kind of a failure. And I think I started having all these questions like, okay, what's she going to think about this? We've never been through a situation like this, it's like, is she going to pick up and leave? Is she going to do that? And I had no reason to believe that. None. She stuck through me through multiple deployments and years away from each other and all this other stuff through and through. And I don't know why this instance I thought that was going to happen. So from there, it just got worse and worse, and I started getting more angry. I was more bitter. Even my family would notice, like, I wouldn't talk really much to my family, and when I did, it was extremely negative. People would ask me, what's your problem? What's going on? And, I didn't realize I was having one, towards other people. I usually could think I could put up this wall, this fake front, and I could for a long time. However, when it came to this deep of depression, like, even my wall was crumbling. My fake wall was not there. And people started realizing that, something's going on. His temperament's changed, being a jerk to people when I'm not normally that way. And, my mom would say something, and she knew, I was kind of struggling with some stuff to some degree. And she, would throw out the religious stuff, so, and I grew up in a religious home that was instilled in me. I even got to the point where I told my mom, Mom, save it. I don't want to hear it. And, that's not like me. I can't explain any other way that my whole mood, I did a complete 180 of who I was to what I've become. It got to the point where I got so bad where one night I was ready to just ultimately be done. I was like, you know what? There's nothing good's happening. There's, no positivity, which there was. I just wasn't seeing it. I wasn't looking at what was positive in my life, but my brain told me there was no positivity. Everything was a joke. And, I wanted to end it. I pulled up to, our apartment that we lived in at the time. And in my head, I was like, this is it. I pulled out the gun, and right as I was about to, there's a song, there's a band playing on my CD player. I don't even recall this playing at the time. I mean, it probably was in my brain. Obviously, my mental state was in a whole different direction. And it's a heavier song. It's a heavier band, do a lot of screaming, all that stuff, whether you like it or not. That's everyone's choice. But there's one spot in this song that it stops doing that and it calms down. And right at that time, the spot of the song said, "Lift up your eyes, discouraged, and if you feel like giving up." And that really creeped me out in a way, because again, I don't recall that playing. I don't recall any of the music going on, but in that time, that one part stuck out to me. And so I stopped. That knew that wasn't going to happen right then and there. That same day, I gained my composure, all that stuff, because I had to put up that tough guy front like everything was okay, walk in the house, and that ended up being the night I found out that my wife was pregnant with my now 7-year-old daughter. And instantly right there, that was a game changer for me. I knew at that point, okay, I gotta figure this out. I gotta fix this, because it's not just me. It's not, her and all that other stuff. I've got a child coming. And from there, I knew I couldn't be in this mindset. So I started seeking counseling. I started, talking with other people and, kind of opening up about it. Not to this extent that I am now, but at least, baby stepping my way into telling people that, I'm struggling. I honestly, I didn't tell my wife till almost 9 months or so, maybe give or take a few months after our daughter was born, that I had that situation and that I put myself there. Because, at that time that it clicked for me that, hey, I don't want her stressing. I don't want her worried about me. I don't want her to know that this happened, because, she's got a child on the way. And, she was a little, frustrated and upset that I didn't tell her, and every right so. But here I am today. Life's great. I got an awesome family. The thing that I question, and this is where it really hits home with like the mental health stuff, is I don't know why I never talked to her. I don't know why I felt like I couldn't tell her something or ask her something or ask her for help. That was the weirdest part, because when you go through those mental health, at least in my situation, like none of that even clicked in my head. You don't think about that. You just think of the negative and what people might think. In my opinion, the judge, what are they going to say? How are they going to look at me? And is that going to change her perspective of me? When in reality, I didn't do anybody a favor. I hurt myself. I was hurting them. I was, being rude. It changed my whole personality without even realizing I was. So that was kind of eye-opening. And, I still to this day, I think about, the suicide thing. Not that I'm going to do it, but I used to be that guy that thinks about, how could a person do that? That's so selfish. They've got family, they've got kids, they got all that, because I've got friends that, committed suicide, from the military, things like that. And I never understood it. I don't get, I was like, well, you got everything going for you, all that stuff. How could you put yourself, and your family through that? Well, going through that, from my experience, and that's all I can speak from, is when you get to that point mentally, you don't think of anything else. You don't think about your family. You don't think about other people, your friends, things like that. Your brain is in such a dark state that you only think about you and your situation and your issues and your problems. So not to justify it, to make it right, because I don't want anyone to ever go through that. But I can, from being on that end, understand how it happens, because your brain just totally switches on you. And if it wasn't for that one moment, I don't know if we'd be having this conversation right now, to be honest. So, yeah, and, it's not, cured. I don't think it'll, you can cure depression. Maybe you can. I mean, I think it's something that you'll have to work at every day, but that's the key. I mean, the key is you got to work at it. And for me, if it wasn't for my wife, I mean, she has been such a solid supporter. She's been the rock. And that, in my opinion, is the key to getting through those dark times. You got to have that person that is going to stand by you through thick and thin. It doesn't matter if you're at your lowest or highest or what. Having that person, whether it's a sibling, a friend, or a spouse, any of that, that is the major key. And to have that, at least one person that you can fall back on. Because ultimately, they're the reason, that you're here. That one person's all it takes. I just keep going back to, I don't know why I flipped that switch of thinking I couldn't trust my wife or tell her, have her think that she's going to think different of me, because she's never given me a reason to ever believe she would.
Well,
so kind of.
Well, no, I was thinking, I think that there's so many different feelings involved when you are, with your spouse like that. And I don't know if this is how you feel, but it was kind of one of the questions I wrote while you were telling your story. But, one of the mantras in a sense of what we are doing is that we want to help, kind of destigmatize or break down some of the barriers of the traditional, like this prideful kind of male stuff, whether you want to label it as chauvinistic or whatever, but it's kind of like the guys are supposed to do this and take care of the women and make the money, and the women are supposed to cook, clean, do baby stuff, whatever. I mean, there's a lot of different contexts of this, but when you get into a position where you are, and we've been there multiple times, getting credit cards out of whack and so on, thinking I have to take on all the responsibility of the money for the family and taking care of them, that I know I felt embarrassed if I had to tell her she found out. I felt pride, like I was, part of ruining our family, and there's no way, we could keep up with this lifestyle, which wasn't even lavish. It's just normal stuff, and the responsibilities of work, and every time you made a mistake, then that was 10 times harder on yourself because you thought you were screwing up more and more. Do you feel that maybe because of some of the traditions of our Midwest families and so on, does that play a part, do you think, into how maybe males are getting relationships are getting more modern with being equal and opening up to each other? Does that kind of explain where you might have felt too at sometimes?
I do. I think it, for me, it was, I was always, I guess if you call, the breadwinner, I made sure we were taken care of. I mean, she did her part too, she's always worked and stuff like that as well. But, I've always felt like I was able to handle any situation. No, I can take care of that or take care of that. And I did kind of feel like, that helpless, like, okay, I can't do this. And that scared to ask her because it was my job, that I felt was my job to take care of, X, Y, Z, when in reality, marriage, it's a team thing. I also know for me, the monetized value, killed me. I always thought, that her and I should have the nice new vehicles and fancy houses, all that stuff. But I struggled so hard trying to achieve all that stuff that essentially it threw me back and wrecked me, because I couldn't obtain that stuff. And that's the stuff that really people got to be careful for, because there's no monetary value, that can make you happy. I know, it sounds, ridiculous. We hear it all the time, but for me, it's 100% true. Because, I would see somebody have that nice vehicle or this, that, or, you'd want to compete. Oh, I can do that, or I can do that. And honestly, you burn yourself out, and for what? Just to be compared with someone else. But for her and I, we've kind of come to the reality, like, we don't care about that stuff. Once, that was a past thing. But now, I'm content with, hey, I drive a 96 F-150 and I love it. You asked me 3-4 years ago, I would have been going crazy thinking, I was like, oh, I got this new truck and I've been all happy and there's no way I'm going to do this. But honestly, I found so much peace between us and our family, knowing that we can be content with this. She's always been able to. I was the one that had that, that struggle. But no, I 100% agree with you that, that feeling of, I guess me as not necessarily a failure, but not being able to be the provider, the alpha, or however you want to label it as, was definitely a huge part in that.
So when you were starting to go through some of this snowballing effect of your problems taking over your mind and the rumination of you going over and over every situation and how maybe you're screwing it up and how bad it could be and so on, when that snowballing and I think to some degree we sort of recognize that we might be going through some depression, when you start to pull away from your family or your loved ones, or, acting out, lashing out, narcissistic at times, all those kind of different personality traits are coming out in you. And people notice, wow, that's not you per se. When that was all starting to snowball for you, did you seek therapy or want to? And if not, why do you think that wasn't something that you wanted to look into at that time?
It was kind of a 50-50 for me. So prior to me getting bad, I always had seen a counselor for, like, when I lived down in Georgia. just, the odds and ends, because, I'd get in those depression funks. So, I did see one down there. It was never anything that I felt I ever had to worry about. When I got up here and things kind of got worse, I told myself that, no, I don't need that. Which is totally false. I had the mindset of, I live in Watertown. Like, I can't see a counselor here because, it's such a small town. Someone's going to know, or, I know they got the confidentiality stuff, the Privacy Acts, all that, but it was still always in the mind. I'm like, I'm not going to talk with anyone here. By next week, the whole town's going to know my problems or things like that. And, so by not having that outlet or talking to anyone, got it worse. And that was one of the big things for me. The other one was, I did attempt to get with one counselor, and they were more of the, okay, how are you feeling? This, that, more of that sympathetic type vibe. And that's absolutely not what I wanted or needed. I wanted someone that was going to be to the point, be like, hey, you need to get your act together. Here's how we're going to do it. Help me establish that plan. And the one that I had experienced was more tried to coddle me, I guess, per se, and say, it'll be okay. Here's what we're going to do. It wasn't that tough, kind of that tough love and that, solution. And after that, I was just like, no, I'm not doing that here, so it's a mixed bag for me.
Yeah, and you kind of hit the nail on the head for one thought of mine as far as another one of our little missions to destigmatize therapy. So, and maybe this is a crude example, but it's a Steve Jurgens humorous example nonetheless for people that know me. But we'll go to the doctor and we'll let them put a finger up our butt and trust that. But you won't go to therapy and talk about your problems. And everybody knows that colonoscopies and all these things, and yeah, it was a dramatic statement so I could catch people's attention, but, and maybe a little chuckle, but we're okay with that kind of stuff and talking about, oh yeah, I've got to go in and get a colonoscopy, or they do the joke with the finger in the glove and ha ha ha. Everybody's been a part of it. We're all immature enough to deal with that. But yet when you go to a counselor, it's like, I got to go to a casino. I'm driving around to the backside and I don't want people to see me go there just to talk about problems. And everybody has them. And I think once we realize, which is the main part of doing this show and having so many different people share stories and us putting out information that we come across and problems and create solutions for them, is to let everybody know it's normal. 1 in 4 or 5 people deal with mental health illness, and over 800,000 people a year globally commit suicide and die. And so, anyways, you had to.
Yeah, it's not going to therapy doesn't mean that you're broken necessarily either. It's just that wellness exam for our minds. We're all big into wellness exams. We do them for our kids. We go yearly, every other year, all those things. So everyone just needs to switch that perspective. But, and I understand like how you're worried about, because you feel like small town gossip and things. And then you talk about finding that therapist. And we talked about that in one of the last episodes too, is like, it's okay to like bounce and see different ones until you find that one that you mesh with that can become like person that you feel comfortable with, so that you can, confide in them, and then you relax. Because once you can relax in those sessions and be able to truly talk to somebody, then your full mask can come down with them.
Yeah, it's not like, it's if you don't connect with a therapist, because you can go to one, and even if you don't connect with them and you go, well, that didn't work out, I'm not going to do it. I can't think, I don't know, advertising sometimes like that, or when you're trying to sell something, it takes consistency or time, to try that. Well, if you went to a store and you had a bad salesperson and you're like, well, I'm never going to go back there ever again. Well, don't let one bad salesperson or bad customer service rep or whatever, ruin the entire business, or one bad apple ruin the tree, blah, blah, blah. So therapy is something that, you have to try and, try again, or go somewhere else, go with somebody else. So, is that something that do you still utilize therapeutic, services? Yeah.
Not as much as I did. but when I need to, when I know I need to, when I'm getting to the point where, I feel like, hey, you're starting to kind of lose yourself, I know now that it's like, okay, I need to put myself in check. I need to get a reset button. I need to, whether it's, and a therapist doesn't have to be someone you pay and sit in front of, in my opinion. Like for me, my sister, like, it's funny. We used to not get along in high school. She's 4 years older than I am. But now, like, I have told her more of my problems and more of my issues, and like, I can go to her to reset. So you don't necessarily have to have, kind of goes back to that, finding that rock. You don't have to have or pay somebody to do it, but you need to have that one person that can get you back in check and get you grounded again. And so, so I do that. I do utilize, from time to time, some services at the VA clinic. The one thing I go to, and I use more often than I probably realize, is it's called the ACT Coach. It's an app on the phone, and it's just basic, simple like breathing exercises and things like that. So I don't utilize the counselor as much because I know I've gotten the tools from the counselors of what I need to do to get myself back in check. So to answer that, I do, but not as often.
It's kind of like, how you said it never goes away. It's similar to maybe somebody that was an addict, and it's gone through recovery. Their term is, I'm always an addict, or you're in recovery, because it's like because they can still get in a rut and they have to find their way out. And so it's the same concept. It's always that continuous checking in with ourselves, making sure it's at our top of mind of, how am I doing today? It's not just going to go poof and you're like, things are going to go away, because it can easily, catch up to us if we're not checking in on it and seeing how it's going. It's kind of like, I read a saying today about this cactus. We all have a cactus, but if you're going to sit on it, it's going to feel like all of your problems are coming all at once at you, So you have to like continuously checking in on it, so you're not just all of a sudden sitting on that cactus all at once.
Yeah. The one thing I do want to add to that, and I feel it's really important, also back to that, having that rock, that foundation, which is obviously my wife. I've gotten to the point now, obviously going through the situation that we did, a handful of years ago. If I'm struggling someday, I still have those where I'll just send her a text, like in the middle of the day, like, hey, I'm in a funk, I'm not doing good, or, I'm struggling today. She will just start bombarding my phone with like pictures of our daughter and our dog and things like that. And like, she knows those little things to flip that switch to get me back into more of a positive mindset to kind of start over. And, that's where I can't stress enough having that rock, that one person, because she knows me, and which goes back to looking at, why could I not tell her anything? It's ridiculous that I couldn't, but she knows how to put me back in that, level-headed mood by simple text messages, pictures of our daughter, dog, whatever. And so that's huge as well.
So speaking of your spouse, I'm sure we can imagine what her mindset was when she found out about the monetary side of all of this. But what, if you could sort of explain, because I think people need to prepare for this, and, not many people do come out, proactively, but it is one of the symptoms of suicide. But they don't generally say, hey, spouse, I'm thinking of, killing myself, blah, blah, blah. I mean, sometimes they are straight up, but when you told her after the fact, you said you had waited, 9 months or so. What was her reaction to the suicidal part of that?
Well, aside from the emotional and tears and all that, like, she was upset with me. Every right so, because she knew, obviously I was going through a funk, but she never in a million years had ever thought that I was to that level. And I don't know if it was worse because, one, I was in that moment and she didn't catch it, which, that's just me guessing. I don't know for sure. Or if it was the fact that I waited that long. I think she was probably more frustrated that I waited that long to tell her, and I didn't tell her right away. So it was a mixed bag of, emotional sadness, stuff like that, plus a little frustration that, back to, I don't know why I couldn't talk to her. that whole, the whole idea of, me trying to keep everything a secret randomly for no reason, I think, didn't sit well with her either. But at the same time, the big thing is like, she didn't belittle, she didn't yell at me. She wasn't like, didn't put me in, I guess, the doghouse category, if that's what you want to call it. Like, she, from then on, hey, this was a serious deal. And we talked about it and we kind of worked from there. And, she's like, okay, we need to, you need to start seeing a counselor, this X, Y, Z. She was instantly supportive. She didn't, hold a grudge, leave it over my head. It was instant support after the shock factor of me telling her. So,
well, and the number one phrase that bounces up a lot when we do talk to someone who has a traumatic story, if you will, they generally always say, or that partner says to them, or even after the fact, if someone did go through with something, even if it's a medical condition, people will always say, if they would have just told me, I would have said this or done this or tried this, and it's not a secret that, it's cliche to say, hey, reach out to that friend, reach out to that, person you haven't spoken to forever. Or if you notice someone's down and out, take time to talk to them. And, you might even hear this and think, well, sure, I can think of somebody in my life that might need, more attention or something, but, well, it's okay. I'll do it. But, if you really do know of someone that's depressed or just not themselves lately, there's a lot of ways that you can drop little hints. And, we have other episodes where we've talked about different outlets and websites, with the Suicide Prevention Lifeline. They have tips for people that if you want to reach out to someone and help someone that you think one of your friends or family members is going through that. And so that's kind of how I thought you would answer about your wife, was that, that kind of common phrase, like, why didn't you come to me? Of course you could have come to me. Yeah, I might have been pissed off, but we could have started working on this together and turning it around, instead of you thinking the only way to get through it was to, to end your life.
And when
right, because oh, go ahead.
No, I knew, obviously both of you, and I had seen you during all that time, and I would have had no idea, because every time I saw you, you were always like happy and smiling, you seemed so upbeat. So when we sat and we talked about your story, I sat there going, wow, it's amazing what we don't always know is going on with those that are wanting to hide it, but that are needing, the most support. And it's like, you feel like you're having to hide it so hard. And like you saw, your family was maybe getting the brunt of it, but you were still, not wanting to open up. And it's like the mind was still going to continuously play those tricks on you during that time frame. But for those of us looking out or looking back at it, never would have known where you were at in that stage.
Right. And, when I say like the family thing, I wasn't like that towards my wife though. See, and that's where I think it caught her off guard, because I was more disgruntled, towards, like my mom or other people. But, I treated my wife the same, because ultimately in my head, she was the one that, I was afraid to disappoint the most. And so I tried extra hard to like keep that wall and hold that composure so she wouldn't see that. That's something that, yeah.
In your conversations afterwards, or even, as it continued, did she ever say or make phrases like, well, I kind of did wonder at this point or this time if there was something going on, but I just didn't really know how to approach you about it, or anything like that?
No. She knew that, because, I had seen a counselor before. She knew that I was off, and she had said multiple times, like, hey, you should start, going back to, seeing a counselor again, things like that. But never did I think she ever believed that it was to the level that it was. Mm-hmm. So I don't think that was too alarming or concerning for her. However, now I don't hide it. Like, she knows, like, if I come home and, like Catherine said, if I'm not my chippy, jovial self, she knows. She first thing she says, you're good. Like, just straight to the point. Like, she doesn't, ask crazy questions. You're good. And then I'll just flat out tell her yes or no. I'm like, no, I'm not. Yes, I am. It's awesome once you get to that point and you just let it go. Like how good it feels to have that person. You can just be like, no, I'm not. XYZ is bothering me today, and I don't know how to deal with it. And then, it just turns into a conversation or whatever your guys' process, that works for whoever it is becomes. And it's the best thing that ever happened. So
that's awesome. And, there's a lesson there too for couples in general, obviously if you're having relationship issues, it takes two to get through that. It takes both of you doing some work and changing yourselves into whatever the new, you is going to be. But, coming from the other side of it, I know that I've had times in my life where people would give me advice or they thought, what is going on with you, or, you're drinking a lot or whatever, depending on what part of my life we're talking about. And I can tell you, if you are someone and someone has said things like that to you, like, hey, I think you're drinking a little heavy, or, geez, you've just been really crabby lately, even if it's your spouse or it's a friend of yours or a coworker, I think for the most part, people don't just say that stuff for no reason. So if you're the one that's being told those things, I just want to urge you to kind of take a second to step back and realize that the reason your spouse or your coworker or friend is saying that, hey, something's not normal about you, or are you feeling okay? Obviously you were a very good actor, if you will, that you were able to kind of maintain where your wife didn't really have any idea. And I know there's been times where I've told my wife I'm unhappy and she said, oh, I had no idea that's the way that you felt. And instead of communicating during it, which leads into what you said, we would just wait until one of us was super pissed, and then we'd scream at each other. And then eventually we'd talk through it towards the end, but it's such an aggressive way to handle it, where now we do a lot of vibe checks. And generally, if it's an anger style, neither one of us really like it. But I think we've gotten to the point now where our habitual mindset is, even if we're pissed and we're like, hey, what's your deal? Or vibe check or whatever, and we're angry, it might be like, ugh, fine. And then just walk away or be a little defensive. But I think we're now getting to where we kind of work it through in our mind, and those little tiny exercises make a big deal in the end. So I think that's what you alluded to, was that you guys have this, your own little process, and everybody's different though, of how you kind of keep each other in check but you have the action to be there for each other, which, you being the one who's causing the problem or having the problem or whatever, you have to, takes two, you got to check yourself.
Yeah. And the big one with that is, for me, is, I got to the point where we never go to bed mad at each other. I know that sounds really, fairy tale-y, but even if, it's something really simple, and, we write it before we go to bed, and, I go down and watch TV and she goes to bed or whatever, like, one of us will still, I'll walk up there, she'll come down, and we'll be like, hey, I'm sorry, just to not go to sleep with that. Even if it's petty, if it's, that's, we try really hard. And I think that's key, because then for me, and I obviously can't speak for her, but I'm sure it helps her too, that at the end of the night, you're like, okay, that's one less thing, that's water in the bridge. We got that taken care of. And, it doesn't even have to be a full-blown argument. It could just be something really petty, that, you would never think in a million years would be a big deal. And it may not be. But for someone that has, a depression thing or anything, the littlest things will eat you. Like, there will be little things that, I'll say something like, oh, no, it wasn't a big deal. But to me, it was. And it just eats you alive. So I just, always try to keep that, clean slate the best you can. It's huge.
So now we talked about, the business, kind of not being as successful as what you were wanting to was a big part for you, and feeling like that moment of not succeeding. But do you think with your multiple deployments, do you think that your PT, did you have any PTSD from those multiple deployments that maybe added to the fuel to your fire a little bit?
That's actually a good question because honestly, I don't really know. I always say no because I don't have any like direct instances where I could be like, yeah, I went through X, Y, Z, and you know, but looking back, that's kind of after my second one. I did kind of start seeing a counselor around that time, and it very well could be. I don't put it at that. Not saying it's not. And the other thing for me is like I would get, to go with that. I wouldn't call it PTSD per se, but like I get horrible, horrible nightmares. But it's off the wall stuff. This is how powerful the brain is. Like, dreams of rattlesnakes biting me, and I wake up and I don't want to go back to bed. Like, what does that have to do with anything? I've never been in a position where I've been cornered by a rattlesnake, but I wake up kicking the sheets and all that stuff. So it's kind of like a mixed bag, but people have asked me that, and I always allude to no, but it could be. I don't know. That's kind of when I started seeing a counselor, and I kind of seen gradual mood changes from there. So it could be. I've never officially deemed it as that.
So I have one kind of more involved question, and then maybe we can get into the positive side of this episode. But if you could for a moment, and I know you said at one point you're not even sure, what was going on at times when you were sitting in your vehicle and you were holding that gun. Do you have an idea of what you were thinking or how you can explain that kind of snowball, that triggers someone to get so close to that decision? And thank God, something pulled you out of that. And, then hearing about the child coming was pretty amazing too. But do you know what was going on in your head before as you were sitting there about to maybe do this?
It's all kind of a cloud. Like, I remember, driving home from the shop. I mean, I hadn't slept for a while because, I was working late, things like that. But I don't think it was anything particular that just set me off for that night. I think it just finally got to the point where, it was just all overwhelming, and I got such high anxiety levels and, depression and success. And I think it was that tipping point. I mean, I don't think it was any one thing that was like, yep, that's it. That set me off. I think I held it in and drug it for so long that it just got to the point where like mentally, I just couldn't bear any more of it. And then, yeah, I mean, is that kind of what you're asking? I mean,
yeah, because I think that, I always want to try to engage people's thoughts too, especially when we do a real serious episode like this, of a true life story, if you will. But, I want to try to trigger people's minds or put you in the situation, if you will. So if you are, you can maybe look for someone's actions or watch them, if it's a friend or a family member or a spouse, or if you yourself, so you find yourself ruminating about all of these issues and, how that does, like we've talked about, snowball into you making that decision right towards the end there, if you will. So,
Yeah, it was.
Go ahead.
Yeah, with that, I mean, it kind of was, I guess if there was a trigger, I think it would probably be, I got to the point where like, what am I doing? Like, why am I putting in all these hours doing all this work and I'm not obtaining what I want to obtain? And, with that ongoing kind of built up pressure, and I'm just like, it was late. I remember it was probably 1 a.m, and I was just leaving the shop, and I just, it's like, why am I doing this? I'm coming home at 1, and, like for what, and I think it was just kind of that final, I'm not getting my goal, I'm not hitting where I want. And yeah, the pot boiled over essentially.
So what do you do currently as we slide into the positive side of the episode? What practices do you do now? Tell us a little bit about that app, so maybe people can find that if they're able to use it. What do you do to stay more on the positive side of life now?
Yeah, absolutely. The summertime, it's pretty easy for me. Golf and fishing are kind of like my two outlets. Golf be the main one. It's like a complete reset button for me. When I go out to golf, I'm a competitive person. So when I'm, playing, from the moment I hit that first tee shot, every shot that, as I'm driving up the wall, whatever, I'm only thinking about that next shot. It's like instant, nothing on the outside world matters. There's no thought of any of that. It totally draws me away. By the time I'm done with my 9 or 18 holes, I feel like a new person. It's like my brain almost finally got to rest, because at night, you sit there and think. But at that time, your brain is shut off from the outside world. It's like, thank you. You gave me a break. And that's like a reset button for me. The wintertime, it gets a little trickier for me, because obviously I can't golf, things like that. But just, my daughter has been huge, just watching her be silly, doing gymnastic stuff, or, doing silly Snapchat videos, with her, or whatever the case may be, find a hobby that you enjoy. Me, I collect sports cards, I buy sports cards, and I like to buy collections and go through them, something that, my daughter's kind of gotten into. And, I focus on that. Anything that you can do that channels your thought to only that. So it gives your brain that reset opportunity is what I do. So, and the ACT Coach, that is an app on your phone. It's free. It's a VA app. I believe anyone can download it. I don't think it's strictly towards veterans or active military. Just go to your Google store and type in the ACT Coach. And what it is it's just an app on your phone where it'll teach you like different breathing exercises. Like at first when I seen this, and I'm like, whatever, this is a joke. But it's really helpful. Just it'll tell you to go in a quiet room and just do like 10, 15 minutes of breathing. You can log what you did, different levels of, if you got anxiety, things like that. There's different things on there that can help walk you through that. Or if you're having trouble with sleeping, how you can use that to help you fall asleep at night, to kind of shut off your brain, almost like a meditation type thing, on an app. And it'll talk to you. You don't even have to read it. You open it up, you click it, it'll talk to you. It'll tell you everything, and you just, so that's an awesome little app. So
that's awesome. We try to find different ways too of helping people find solutions to maybe different problems, and not everyone's the same, so it all depends. But I've been talking a bit about meditation, and recently, and posting about it and learning more and more. So it's all about cultivating mindfulness. And when you are mindful, I've learned there's so many different meditations. I happen to use Insight Timer. Calm is a popular one. Sounds like what you're using is really awesome too. And then there's numerous ones out there right now. But when you start to go through some of this, really it's the practice of, as your thoughts start to spiral, as they normally would, that anxiety starts to come, your heart beats faster, maybe you're starting to get a little sweaty, you are supposed to focus back in onto your breathing, and don't judge that you were thinking about a bunch of stuff. Don't be mad at yourself. Don't allow it to get you anxious. Just go, oh, yep, okay, I was just thinking about that tomorrow I have to get up a little bit earlier, and I've got to get to work and get this thing done. Yep, okay, so that's happened. I thought about that. Now I'm breathing in. I can feel that cool air going into my nostrils. I can breathe out. I feel it coming out of my lungs. That mindfulness really starts to, as you practice it more and more, and I don't do it every day, but I think it has significantly in the last few weeks help change my mindset, keep me more at peace, and allow me now to control a little bit more of what I think and how I react to situations. It's like it's slowed the world down just a teeny bit for me, which is something we could all use. So I want to ask you this. I'm curious, because this is one of my favorites. I don't do it by the book. I suggest people do, of course, but if you do it at all, I think it's very, very impactful. In fact, most all psychologists say this is one of the most therapeutic practices, but it's the gratitude practice. So any self-help book on the planet from Tony Robbins to whoever's out there. They will at some point tell you to do a gratitude practice. So at night, usually the end of your day is when most people will suggest that you do it, but you can wake up in the morning and do it as a sense of affirmation to start your day too. But when you end your day, especially if you're someone that's anxiety ridden and you're laying in bed thinking of all these different issues, and it's okay, by the way, guys, to think about stuff when you go to bed. It's not shutting that off. It's filtering it or not allowing it to control your emotions and make you snowball and spiral and get upset. But think of 3 things, at least 3 things. Different books will tell you 10 and write them down 10 times and whatever. But there's a lot of different ways you can do this. But at bare minimum, think of 3 things that happened to you that day. And don't just think of them like, and I'll give you one. So a little bit earlier this evening, one of the things I was most grateful for is I look out the window and I see Catherine laying on an inner tube, and one of our kids is out there and they're just playing around and splashing. And I see the look on Catherine's face, and she was half smirking and she had her sunglasses on, and not only was she looking real cute, but she's just smiling and enjoying time with our soon-to-be 12-year-old daughter. And I think there's times in our life where we wouldn't have jumped in the pool, or we wouldn't have just been crabby and worrying about our own problems and things like that. And it was a self-reflection, but it was also a moment of gratitude because of how it made me feel about how far we've come and how far she's come as a mom and me as a dad and our kids. And you could easily look at that situation. The reason I go into so much detail is yeah, I looked out the window. My wife was sitting on a tube playing with my kid and smiling. It was cool. But true gratitude moment is exploring those feelings and really, really focusing on why it was so positive and happy for you. Because guess what? When you're doing the opposite and you're worried about stuff and you're thinking about all the negative shit in your life, you're really pounding that into your mind and then talking bad about yourself, talking bad about the situation, just being so negative. And that's common. But we don't slow down and take the positive and the gratitude and think about that for 5-10 minutes. We don't do it until we smile, but we'll think about something bad till we frown or ruin our day or cry or take it out on our wife or kid. So gratitude practice is one of my most favorites. You should go to a room and seclude yourself and write it down, because that correlation between thinking, putting it down on paper really imprints it into your brain. And if you do it consistently, your mind will change to find the gratitude or the optimism in almost every situation.
And then I know, Nathan, you talked a lot about the VA and like the services that they provide and how much that did help you. Do you want to talk about the services that are available for vets or for current active?
Yeah, absolutely. So I currently work there as well as user services. If you have any issue or anything, the VA here in Watertown, Sioux Falls, wherever you're at, is fantastic. They have a mental health counselor, they have psychiatrists, things like that. And, I encourage any veteran, whether you're National Guard, active, whatever, to get enrolled. You're not out anything, to get enrolled. You don't have to, doctor there. You don't have to do anything. But get enrolled. And if you're having these issues, they have great mental health programs throughout the VA clinic, and each person's different, so, we have our one here in Watertown, and he'll cater to whatever your needs are, so one person might have an issue, with anger. And so, they'll work on, a solution, and they're in steps to help with that. It could be, whatever the case may be. They're fantastic. And, I use them, and I've had absolutely great luck, great people. There is also a Veterans Crisis Line, completely free. So if you want to keep it anonymous, that is 1-800-273-8255. And that's, free to anybody. You don't have to be enrolled. You don't have to do anything. Like, it's a no questions asked. You don't even have to tell them your name. Just call them. There's someone on the other line, and they're the perfect group to to yell at, if you're in so much rage, you need to yell. Like, I've used it a few times, and not that I was to that tipping point, but just so I can talk to that person, say all my problems to, kind of get my frustration out, because at the end of the day, she doesn't know you, he or she doesn't know you. You don't know them. It's perfect, because you don't have to worry about, if you're worried about the judgmental thing, there's nothing to worry about, because neither of you know who each other are. So it's fantastic. But yeah, if you're here locally, just stop by the VA clinic in Watertown. We can get you the paperwork, get you enrolled, and there's no questions asked. Friendly staff, and no one judges. It's a huge help for anyone that needs it.
Well, that was very exceptional information. And you've done an absolutely amazing job of telling your story. I don't think everyone realizes the strength and the courage it takes to not only get through that situation, but then to be compelled to tell that story and try to help someone else. And it's also okay not to do that. If you want to keep that to yourself, and you're working through it with close friends and family, that is also okay. But reach out and listen to episodes like this and plenty of other ones. I've been listening a lot to lately, the Greater Good Science podcast, and they go into specifics on some of the different practices to help cultivate a happier mindset. And again, that doesn't mean you ignore all the other feelings either. So you still are going to get pissed. You're still going to go into a rage. You're still going to be sad, but hopefully you're happy and positive most all the time. Or when you go through one of those, you find the brighter side of that crappy situation, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. And, for me, it took me a long time to tell anyone, as my wife, and then I kind of told someone else, then I kind of branched up to another level. And, now, with you guys, I felt, for me personally, that was kind of that next step, for me to let it go, just, hey, here it is. Because, it takes a lot to tell people your issues, and, some people can't, and I couldn't for the longest time. I mean, this was back in 2012 or so-ish, not quite 2013, kind of when all this was starting to happen. And I'm just now 2021 kind of, talking about it. So, I mean, it takes a lot, and you find your tier, do what you're comfortable with. If, it's a long process, but just know that, be persistent and just work at it, and you'll see results.
And that's amazing. And a lot is to be said for your wife, not only for her continuous support in being there as your rock and truly being an amazing woman, to be standing by your side through all of it, but to be standing by your side while you're willing to open up and talk about it publicly too. Cause I know you've gone and you talked at, the school too. And it's like kind of can reopen some of those wounds or that hurt or that like scared, that fear. And it is amazing that you two are doing that all together to try to be an inspiration for others.
Yeah. And to add to that, like you said, when I spoke for a suicide prevention thing at Mount Marty a couple of years ago, that was kind of my first big one. It wasn't a lot of people, but I told my wife and stuff, like, no, I just stay home. It won't be a big deal. No, I'd stay home. And they're like, okay. Well, as I started talking, who do I see sitting in the back? My wife showed up anyway. When I told her to stay home, but she still showed up to support me, because she knew that was a hard thing for me. And she went through it too. It wasn't just me, but she still showed up to support that anyway. And yeah, I mean, enough, and then not enough can be said for how amazing of a person she is, for everything she's done. Like there's nothing I could do to ever, give her for everything she's done for me. So
that is awesome. But, I think every day that you're growing and evolving and so on, those are ways of, giving back to her in a sense, or to your spouse in general. That's something I practice a lot with Catherine, all the tough times that I've put her through over the years. And her too. We constantly are trying to find ways to show each other gratitude and praise and so on. And, there's that quote out there that I'll butcher, but it's something about if you can't handle me at my worst times, you don't deserve me at my best times. And I think contextually, that's a powerful message because it takes two to tango. There are times where maybe divorce is necessary. I'm not getting into that right now, but almost anything is you can overcome together. And if you both are trying to continue to keep evolving and growing, you're going to get to a point where you've been in love more than you ever have in your life, and it means something different. I think Catherine and I are more in love than we've ever been, but it's not the same as what it was when I asked her to marry me, or we got married, or we had a kid, or, you know, it's different than it used to be. And I'm sure it will be 5-10 years from now too. So, yeah, I think
everybody changes. You got to adapt to changes. You got to work at it, you know, and not to get into the marriage thing, but yeah, even with the mental health thing, you got to put in the effort. It doesn't just cure itself. I mean, you got to put in the work and, stick with it, and it'll prevail. And, you're going to get thrown curveballs. You're going to have stuff where you're thinking, oh, yep, I'm great. And the next day, you get your knees cut out from you. You just got to keep pushing through and work at it. Just like you said with marriage, it's the same thing. You got to work at it.
Yeah. And we always relate it to exercise a lot too, and if you're not someone who's blessed with insane metabolism, which some people are, they can eat absolute jars of Crisco all day and not even gain a pound. But, someone, and this is something I struggle with, you overeat a little and, over time you just gain and gain and gain. Well, if you exercise and you got down to an ideal weight and you were healthy and so on, and you just stopped, you're going to gain all that weight back and you're going to become unhealthy. And it's the same with your mental health. If you aren't trying to find the positive and every day exercise your mind and put positive content in front of you, talk about positive things, follow a positive page, and not just ours. I follow like 5 million of them, I think. And you just shove all that stuff in front of you all the time instead of the alternative. And that's what you start to develop into. So your conversations change, your circles of friends change, maybe. All these things end up working for you because your mind is now geared to naturally and habitually put things in front of you that are what's best for you, because you are now focusing on yourself, but you're putting the good out there that you deserve to get back.
Absolutely.
100%.
So now I have one more question, Nathan, because I forgot to write it down. What was the name of that song or that band? Because that might be something, that anybody else that's in a moment of despair, or maybe somebody's feeling down, if that song, can be so uplifting, maybe it would be good for others again.
Yeah, it's the band is called Memphis Mayfire, as in the city Memphis, and the song is called Legacy. And, it is a harder group, metal, screamcore, whatever you want to call it. It is heavier. However, if you go on YouTube and you look at that song, it'll have the lyrics in it. And it's crazy to see, like, even when you think they're all raging and, hateful, the lyrics start off, it's 100% positivity band. It's all good vibes. But there will be, I think it's around 2.5 minutes in, it'll all of a sudden go from this hard rock to just instant quiet, a little bit of piano, and a soft, he'll start singing his lyrics soft. And that's when that's when it'll hit, because like you really feel what he's projecting, and that's where those lyrics come from. So
that's awesome. That's actually an episode. While I was mowing the lawn, I like to jam out to podcasts now on that too. And this lady talked about music therapy, and I was like, oh my God, I've loved music since I can remember. It's been therapy for me since I was a grade school age, and we've never done a positive episode on Positively Midwest about music and the therapeutic benefits of it. So, but if we do that, man, we're going to do that right, and we're going to be big, and it's going to be cool. But we have interviewed other guests that are musicians. So, yeah. So
a quick add to that band, there's an album called The Answer. That's a little bit more slower, but if, I encourage you to, even if you don't like it, just read through the lyrics. That whole album, I think it's their third one, talks about, struggling with, depression, anxiety, getting caught in a hole. How do I dig my way out? It's amazing. So even if you don't want to listen to the music, read all the lyrics of that album, because it's such a positive. He's been through all that. He's kind of telling you and giving you guidance of what he did to get himself out, how he found right, all in that album. And that was after the one I told you about. So it's huge.
Well, that's beautiful, my friend. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you for sharing your story. And again, having the courage to try to inspire others. And I'd imagine if you work at the VA, if someone felt connected to you through this, or maybe they're a vet or something, if they want to reach out to you, are you cool with that as well?
Yeah. The actual, I don't think I gave it to you, but the actual clinic line is 884-2420. And that's the clinic here in town. And it'll be either me or another person that will answer that call. So yeah, you can call in, even if you don't want to stop face to face, call in and I can talk to you over the phone. Just ask for me. And, if you have any more questions of how about getting enrolled, or, the things that are offered through the VA, I'll be more than happy to help you.
Well, you certainly have a passion for, now that you've changed, continue to change your life and for the better and the positive. And that's why we wanted to connect with you, and I wanted to make it right. You reached out some months ago, and May being Mental Health Awareness Month, I figured this is the best time to share an important story like this and help others, hopefully. So thank you again for joining us and doing this.
Yeah, thank you both for having me. And like I said, it was great. I really appreciated the time, and hope everyone gets something out of it, and stick with it. Just you'll be all right. Keep your head up, grind through it.
That's right. Well, you've been an inspiration to us, and we're going to put together a description so when people listen to this, there'll be a lot of different websites for suicide prevention and how to look into it. And so we thank you again. We'll let you go. We're going to close out the episode, and then it'll come out this coming Wednesday, which in the real world time will be May 26th, 2021. So thank you again, man.
All right. Thank you both. And you guys have a good one.
You too. Thank you.
Good night, Nathan.
Yep. Bye.
Well,
you hear stories, and we all know somebody in our lives that has either battled with suicide, attempted suicide, or has committed suicide. And you always are, I feel like, affected is the right word for that. And to know somebody, and for him to be on this side, on the other side of it, now telling a story of how he overcame, and now how he's finding positivity and how he is continuing to find joy in life after, is so inspiring.
Yeah, and to remember, you're not the only one. A lot of people go through these feelings, and it could be, someone is, like me, whatever. Everyone that knows me for the most part knows I'm pretty funny and happy-go-lucky and so on. And there's been a lot of times in my life where I've been the complete opposite. And I've even told people since I've transitioned to my new job that I'm different. But it takes life experiences to show you just how positive it can be. And that's what we want to bring to you through Positively Midwest. We're going to continue to find guests that inspire us in different ways and show different sides of positivity as well as the negativity that's out there. So some of the things we'll mention, and I will put these in the description as well. I can't stress enough that you don't have to be the one that's contemplating these thoughts, but you could know someone and go educate yourself. Go out there and learn some of the signs. Give somebody a call. This is for friends and families of someone that you feel could be depressed, and know that you can reach out to us as well. We are not experts, but we will find them, and we know them, and we know experts that will find experts in your area. I'm seeing hits on our website from all over the U.S. now, as well as outside, assuming it's not some weird IP thing. But anyways, we do have a little collection now where we can at least help someone get started through rehab, someone to get started through counseling. Don't let it be too far. Don't let it go too far. Don't let jail be the way that gets you all through into rehab. Don't Don't let that suicidal attempt that didn't go right be what changes your life. If you're feeling upset and it's only been a few months, I mean, why not? What a better way to get ahead of it. We go to the doctor when we're in pain, but that's your body's last way of telling you, hey, this freaking hurts. Go to the doctor. Your mind's saying, hey, this freaking hurts. Either you need to kill yourself or you have to end this or whatever. So don't let your mind warp you to where that's the only decision that you can make. Go and find this information. So you can go to veteranscrisisline.net. The number Nathan gave, 800-273-8255. There's an online chat. I like to do that a lot when I'm dealing with an issue with Amazon or Verizon or whatever. Like for some reason, just chatting on there, it's just, you can still have a conversation with somebody and you don't have to hear the tone and inflection. Maybe that helps you get started. Then these, you can text 838-255. It serves all vets, all service members, National Guard and Reserve, and their families and friends. So if you're a friend of a veteran and they've gone through some things, you can contact this number to find out more information. You can go to mentalhealth.va.gov/suicide_prevention. You can go to sdsuicideprevention.org. If you're from South Dakota like we are, that's a specific site for our state. You can go to suicidepreventionlifeline.org as well. And like we mentioned, be sure that if you are looking into therapy or you have in the past and you thought, well, that just didn't work out, maybe you didn't connect, with that therapist, and let's find you a different one or help you out. So, but the gratitude practice, remember that as well too. That was something that comes highly recommended by a lot of therapists. And when you do it, really, really explore the moment that you're being grateful for. It's so easy to go, I'm grateful that I have kids, I'm grateful I have a house, and I'm grateful that I have air conditioning. But I want you to think about how when it's 80 degrees outside, what it actually feels like. Close your eyes. Imagine opening the door, walking into your home, and that rush of cool air hits you and almost instantly starts to cool down your body temperature. And you just look around your home, you've got somewhere to sit, you can feel the carpet or the hardwood underneath your feet, and it's nice and cool in there. You can go right to your refrigerator and get a cold glass of water, or to your tap, because we live in a place where you can probably drink your tap water. And just, that's a real gratitude moment. How did it make you feel? Get specific with yourself. So, that is, I think I'm at the end of this episode. What about you, milady?
I think it was a fantastic episode. Lots of great information. Always reach out. It's kind of like that saying of see something, say something. If you're feeling something, say something. Reach out to somebody. Yep.
And if you see it, help them out if you can. So, special thanks to, I've been thinking about this lately. Special thanks to John Wayne the Pain. When we started this over a year and a half ago, he gave me the thumbs up to use his music as our intro and outro. So he mixed it up. And the outro that you heard last week and this week is from a song, Ska, Cake, Reggae. And so check that out if you want to. But I'm going to close this episode and until I feel like changing it with this one. Thank you all from the bottom of our hearts for listening to the Positively Midwest podcast. Our hope is to inspire, engage each other's thoughts, and leave you with some great advice. Be sure to join our Facebook group and follow us on Instagram at Positively Midwest Podcast. Make sure you like, comment, share, and screenshot our podcast with all of your cool friends. Every little bit helps. We are in most all major platforms. You can stream it on our website at positivelymidwest.com. Also, check out our merch at the online store. All proceeds go to help those in need, find therapy, or rehab. Please reach out to us at positivelymidwest@gmail.com if you would like to look into therapy or rehab. And thank you. And as always, please always stay positive.